Okay, what I want to talk to you about is service from the start of your church plant. If your church plant is not service-oriented and service-based, it's just a worship service. That's right. And I'll go so far to say is this, if your church does not serve the community, it's not a church, it's just a club. A worship club, a potluck club, whatever, a religious cult club, it's just a club. And so service has got to be a part of what you do as the center of it. You don't go to church to worship God just because you want to worship God. You go to church to worship God and thank him for what he's done for you in your life and in the life of your community. And so worship is a celebration of what you've done together. And service is what you've done together. And so we don't have to plant churches to make disciples, right? The command is to make disciples. But in order to make disciples, church planting is one of the best ways to make disciples. Amen. But what you got to understand is that everything that you do, you got to make sure that you're doing it from the standpoint of the community and not from the standpoint of trying to launch your church. Are you listening to me this afternoon? You know, in our community, we like a little feedback. But one of my old church mothers said, if you're not saying nothing, I'm not going to say nothing. Okay. So this text in Philippians, Paul is talking about making sure that even the good that you do is not for your own selfish ambition. Now, there's been a lot of talk, and I'm glad that I got this platform to say this afternoon. There's been a lot of talk about compassion ministry. A lot of talk about, hey, we gave away diapers and we gave away food and we gave away hats and we gave away all this stuff. And look at all the people that we got to our evangelistic series. Using people's needs to get them to come to church. And we celebrate it. Celebrate getting people to come to church because we're using their needs against them. And I want to say to you that you can serve your community and still be selfish. Yeah, true. Serving your community is not about your selfish ambition, even if that ambition is to plant a church. And so we've got many needs and many things to be concerned about in our communities. Here's one statistic that you need to know, that most church plants don't make it. But church plants that serve the community, they are 3 times likely to make it. Amen. And we have plenty of needs in our community. In the richest country in the world, 1 in 5 people, children are hungry. In the richest country in the world, 40% of adults struggle with hunger. 75% of people who go to prison are going to go back in 5 years. And here's a church planting mantra that I want to leave with you. If you don't serve the community, you won't have any friends. And if you don't have any friends, you can't make any disciples. Because disciples are friends who serve God in the community. So the multiplication model is to serve people and then become friends, and then friends can make disciples. You want to make disciples who become friends with other people and serve God in the community. And so this is the formula that we can use to serve our community. So you want to conserve your community because you don't want to be so heavily minded you're no earthly good. See, it's not a problem with a prophecy seminar. But there's a lot of prophecies in Scripture we don't talk about. What about the prophecy that James talked about when he said, oh, rich people, you heap up for yourselves and you don't pay your workers a wage that you're supposed to pay them. Isn't that prophecy coming true today? What is the church doing to handle that issue? Sometimes we think that social justice issues are issues for other people in the community. No, those are issues for the church to handle. Amen. What is the church doing about the immigration issue going on in our country right now? What did the church do about the Black Lives Matter movement that happened in 2020? When we don't get involved in the things that affect people in those cities don't want to hear from us when we run to their community with a prophecy series about what's going to happen in the future. Brother, I'm not going to wait. I'm not going to be here in the future because I'm hungry today. Amen. I'm not going to be here in the future. So if you're going to serve your community, You first have to scratch the community where they itch. Okay? The days of coming to the community with a vegan cooking class are over. Okay? Nobody in your community except for some person, who's researched it is a vegan in your community. Okay? Gone are the days where you put Big Franks in a hot dog bun and hand that to the community because that's what you eat. Mercy. You have got to serve. It is good, but it's good for us. What's good for the community? So you got to be consistent. You can't just serve the community because it's 3 months before an evangelistic series. You have to serve the community on a consistent basis because there are some benefits to serving the community consistent. You have to invite the community to solve the issue with you. You don't have all the answers to what's going on in the community. You have got to enlist the community to serve with you. When I was in Selma, Alabama, the civil rights capital of the world, that was my first district, my first church. And I had opened up a community center. And I said, we're going to serve the community. We're going to destroy food deserts in the black belt of Alabama. Adventists wouldn't come and work at that center for nothing in the world. I had 30% of the people I needed to really staff that community center. And you know how preachers do sometimes when stuff don't work? We just do windshield wipers. We just disappear. It's just, how, rain hits that windshield, that wiper just, and it's all clean. I was just going to wipe it clean. And I got up one morning and I was praying and I was about to call the community service director and shut it down. And he said, Lewis, if it's a community center, let the community work there. Amen. And we put a sign up that said, volunteers needed. And here's what happened. The 30% of Adventists who worked there and the 70% of non-Adventists who worked there, they were talking before we opened and they talked when we closed and they were talking while they were working with people and they started to exchange phone numbers and go and walk with each other and watch football games and do all kind of stuff together. When I would come to the community center to tell the people, hey, look, we're going to have a business meeting, board meeting, this, that, guess what happened? They started coming to those things. When they all came to a business meeting one Sunday morning and they were sitting in the business meeting, not Adventists, not baptized, don't know anything about policy, procedure, or anything. They were voting, they were making comments, they were doing everything. And some of my members, some of those members, the ones that get up at constituency, Mr. Speaker, I rise in support, those kind of people. They were just going, they were upset. And I said, hold on, just chill. After the meeting, went back and talked to the folks and said, hey guys, we enjoyed having you here, but you really got to be a member of the church to be involved in the business meeting. You know what one of those senior ladies told me? He said, you ain't never invited us to be a part of your little church. When you live the gospel, it's the invitation and the appeal. We talk about appeals all the time as evangelists. The appeal is not some manufactured thing that we have to put together to trick people into making a decision. It's living an authentic life. Let me keep moving because timekeeper is going to make sure I finish on time. All right. Here's what you got to do to make sure that you serve your community impactfully. First of all, do your homework. All right. I come from the business school. I'm just a business guy doing ministry. And I believe that you've got to study your community. And there's a quantitative study and there's a qualitative study. Let me talk about the quantitative study just a second. The quantitative is the numbers, okay? I use Mission Insight, but there are many other particular software that you can use and they're all listed here. These are software that will show you what the needs of your community are so you're not scratching the community where they're not itching, okay? You need to do some inductive and deductive research about your community and find out what is important to them, not what you think is important to them by you observing them as you're coming out of church and getting into your car to drive back to the community that's far away from that place. Okay? So you got to do your research. Now, when you do your research, this is how you do an analysis of your research. Now, the Mission Insight and other software, what they're going to do is they're going to give you the top needs of people in that community, told to them by that community. And here's how they get the information. They get the information the same way that advertisers get that information. They scour people's social media. They scour people's web searches. They scour people's comments, and they aggregate those comments, and they aggregate that information, and they say, these are the top needs of the people in this community. And so you take that information, and the first thing you do with that information is you match their concerns with the resources that you have. Let me say that again. You match their needs with the resources, meaning that if you can't meet the need, you have to figure out who can you partner with that you can help those people meet that need, okay? The second thing you do is understand that your role is to bring a practical and an applicable ministry to that area of concern. Now, the third thing you need to do is understand whether that need is acute or pacing, okay? Here's what I mean. When I looked at that report in 2020, COVID was the number one need people thought they had. What would have happened if I planted a church based upon COVID-19? Where would we be now? We'd be rudderless because that was an acute need for a specific time. A pacing need is a need that's happening in a community that is continuing to happen. It happens in the past, it's in the present, and it's also likely to continue in the future, and you need to address those needs. Do not address needs in your community as a church by what is popular and in the news right now. Because the news cycle is getting shorter and shorter, and you'll find yourself, editorializing the needs of your community. And the last thing is you understand that the numbers are just a snapshot. Okay, I give an exercise to help you to do that. I've got those sheets if you want me to distribute those, put them on Adventist Learning Hub, but I want to move quickly here. Okay, now here's the qualitative.
Can you at least put it up so we take a picture?
Yes, okay. So it's a two-parter. The first part is you look at the information, you take the top 3 community needs, and then you talk about what you might be able to do to meet those needs, the 5 things you might be able to do to meet those needs. That's the first exercise you go through with your core team. The next exercise is you actually decide, okay, what are we going to do? What action steps we're going to take, what's the target date, who's responsible for that, and what budget do we have to do that, okay? That makes you strategically plan to do something instead of spending time. As a business person, I just believe that meetings should be to decide, not to discuss, okay? At meetings, you decide what you're going to do and you do it. The discussion needs to happen before you get to the meeting, okay? I learned that early in ministry, and what that meant is when I had board meetings, my people were trained, we're going to come to this meeting, decide what we're going to do. We're not going to come to this meeting, decide what we're going to think about, what we're going to do. So we're going to do something at this meeting, and we're going to go home. So this is what you do with your core team. So here's the qualitative. The qualitative means, hey, look, you got to talk to all these different groups of people, okay? Community leaders, business leaders, agencies that serve, political establishment, and alternative leadership. Let me explain alternative leadership. Alternative leadership are people who are leaders in the community, but they're not officially recognized, okay? Your local gang member is a community leader, but he's not officially recognized, okay? The unlicensed pharmacist in your community is a leader, but he is not official, okay? And you need to talk to those people. Why do you need to talk to those people? Because if you want to have a summer night where the kids are coming out and playing in a dangerous community, you got to talk to those alternative leaders to make sure the streets can be cleared so kids can play. And oftentimes, especially as people in the church, we don't want to talk to people who aren't official leaders, okay? We need to understand what power is and how it's dispersed. The most powerful people in any community are almost never the people who have positional authority. It's always the people who have influential authority. And you got to make sure that you reach out to people and show respect to people who have influential authority in any community. Okay, plan, scale, execute, measure. This is what I do from a strategic management focus of how I develop a service strategy. You plan what you're going to do. You scale the resources. You do what you say you're going to do. And you measure how you plan, scale, and execute it. And it's a circle. And every time you do it, you get better because you are measuring how well you're planning what to do, how well you're scaling and resourcing what you're doing and executing what you are doing. Okay, so let me give you a case study. Now, Birmingham, this is Mission Insight. This is the software that I use. The red areas, very violent. The yellow areas, kind of violent. The green areas, pretty safe. Now, the crime statistics in America are that out of 100 people, 22.7 people are going to be a victim of a crime, okay? And in the city of Birmingham, 86.1 people out of 100 are going to be a victim of a crime. Now, it may not be murder or robbery or something major. You just may leave your cell phone at the McDonald's counter for 5 seconds, and you turn around and somebody got it. Okay, so it's crime riddled. So that's the quantitative. The qualitative is at our mother church we had people throwing rocks into the windows. We had a strong-arm robbery at the back of the church, had a dead body on the ground at the gas station right at the door, had cameras, there was sex work going on in the morning. So we came up with a strategy to reach our community with service. Touch, target, tell. Touch people where they are, target their needs, and tell them the good that we do is because of the God that we know. So we use compassion ministries, restoration ministries, and empowerment ministries. And I'm moving fast. Okay, now, this is M&N. M&N is the gas station that was right at the corner of the place where we were planning the church, okay? And this was the place that if you were in the unlicensed pharmacist business and you didn't do business like you were supposed to and you had a contract to be unalived, this is likely the place where it happened, okay? All right, so we wanted to target this place. So we touched people where they are. We did a gas and pray. We had about $2,500. And we said, hey, look, we're going to buy free gas, and we're going to pray for you if you want. And I had my young people do it because I don't believe in social media activism. I believe that activism happens on the streets and not on the computer or behind the phone. So you have to get out and give gas and pray and watch God use you and not just use a preacher. So we touched people where they were. If they weren't okay, they couldn't participate. But I convinced the parents that that this is what needs to happen, you know? And oftentimes when kids want to do something good, even people who are crooked will straighten up for a little while, you know? So we touched people where they were. We touched them. We targeted their needs. We targeted their needs in a dual way. Domestic violence is a major issue in the city of Birmingham. The lady there who is the second from the left as I'm looking here, she is the leader of the YWCA, Monica Shields. Monica Shields is a part of the LGBTQI community. She doesn't really like men a whole lot. When I shook her hand as she was walking up on that platform, she went around the other way and avoided shaking my hand. Everybody in the church went, ooh. And the reason why I tell that story is you are not doing community service just to target the people that you're planning a church for. You also want to target the people who have a passion for the same need that you have a passion for. So I'm not just trying to reach people in the community. I'm trying to reach Monica. I'm trying to reach everybody on this stage, the judge, the sergeant who's a police officer. I'm trying to reach the people who have a passion for that need just like I do. So we targeted domestic violence. We had a forum every year, and we also outfitted women, because when women are part of domestic violence, they leave with what they have on their back. And when they're trying to get back into society, they need everything to put in their apartment. So from one year to the next, church members just buying stuff little by little, and by the time we got to the conference, we had enough for 3 families to have an apartment that was totally outfitted. So we wanted to tangibly do something about that. So now, we also targeted their needs with housing, and I'm going to get to that in a second. Now, here's the thing that you need to do. You need to partner with people who are trying to do the same thing you're trying to do. We partnered with the Urban League. And the Urban League is a legacy civil rights organization. They're in every major and medium city in the United States. So I partnered with the leader of the Urban League, and the leader of the Urban League decided to make my church and another church an opportunity center in the whole city, which they were going to move everybody that needed these 6 areas, that needed workforce preparedness, academic enrichment, financial coaching, housing seminars, GED prep, and additional services. They were going to push all of those people to my church and another church in the city. So I have a video of the press conference. I'm not going to show that because I want to make sure that we have enough time to finish. So you need those people. Why? Because they can provide services for people in your community you can't. Okay? In your church plant, you're only going to have so many resources. And even knowledge-based resources, they're going to be finite. You need to partner with other people. Because you're not just trying to reach the people that have the need, you want to reach the people who are helping you meet the need. So the president of the Urban League would call me when he had an issue in his family or he was feeling discouraged or something, he'd call me. I'd pray for him. He wasn't a particularly religious guy. He believed in the social gospel. That's why he was the president of the Urban League. But he recognized that I was not only a person of social awareness, but I was also a person of faith, and that my faith was the reason why I was social, and I got into justice. And so he recognized that. I recognized who he was and respected him. And so we became friends. We would have never become friends if I saw that guy in the store and tried to hand him a tract. He would have probably taken it to be nice, but he wouldn't have read it, or he wouldn't have engaged with me in the same way. I became friends with that person. And there are people like that who you will win to your core team and win to your church plant because they have the same passion for the issue that you have a passion for. So, because I had this partnership with the Urban League, and it had so many resources to give to people in my community, when the George Floyd thing happened in 2020, there was pressure in many Black American communities for the pastors to stand up and do something. Because traditionally in our community, we're supposed to say something, right? The Reverend's supposed, what you got to say, Reverend? You know, why? Because in my cities, like other cities, they were tearing down statues, they were doing all kind of crazy stuff, and they wanted me out with a bullhorn and a slogan. Well, you know, I'm more Claude Anderson than Malcolm X. Okay, I deal with social justice through economics. That's my thing. And so you need a multiplicity of things to do with social justice. So we decided that we were going to do something consistent. We decided that we were going to take houses that were confiscated by the city of Birmingham for back taxes. We're going to get with a developer and get with a contractor, figure out what it was going to take to level those houses up and put reformed people and put saved people in reformed houses. And we were going to staff and stock that community with witnesses so that we could bring down the violence in that community, so the police wouldn't come into the community to snatch people out. Police would come into that community just to protect it and to protect their property. And so if this video works, I'm going to show you the model house. This was the first house that we did. God told us that not only to build a church is my standard, that we also should build up.
When we started our company over 10 years ago, we set out to help people and touch lives. We've done that over the years with our rent-to-own program, providing quality housing. But what we always really wanted to do was partner with the community and partner with the church to really create a cohesive group. And that's what we're here today to celebrate, and we have actually put that more operator. 1, 2, 3, play.
Yeah. Nice.
They lost the house. It may have been a family house. It might have been heir property, and whoever left it to the family didn't take care of it, didn't pay the taxes. So whenever a city takes a home back for back taxes, the family has 3 years to pay those back taxes. If they don't, then someone can buy the house and have it outright and get a title for it. So we do make a search of the family, see what they want to do. If they don't have any, usually we don't get any response, and we put another person who's from that community or in that area, in that house. And so housing is one of the things I have a passion about solving. And one day I'm going to do something that's going to make a major impact in the country as it relates to that. So finally, what I want to say as I'm closing, because I've got 5 minutes, but I'm almost done, is once we target their needs, we tell them that the good that we do is because of the God that we know. And so we do evangelism, just like Elder Halverson said. I'm a public evangelist in the mother church of this church, which is our first church plant out of this mother church. I baptized 400 to 600 people in that church in 9 years. So I believe in public evangelism. And so, I believe we've got to do evangelism. So evangelism is a part of it. And however you do it, however you preach it, look, public evangelism works. It's always worked. The reason why it may seem not to work is because we use it ineffectively and we use it out of context. Evangelistic series that is in context to what you're doing in service, in evangelism, can be a blessing to your ministry. It's when we have done no ministry in the community, we have no community footprint, we have no mission footprint, and then we decide that we're going to do a series, that's when it doesn't work. Because if you don't serve people, you don't have friends. And if you don't have friends, you can't make disciples, because disciples are friends who serve God and their community. So we told people that the good that we do is because of the God that we know. And so how do you measure positive change? You measure positive change person to person, okay? Because I didn't solve the housing problem in Birmingham, not at all. But I had to measure it, who got a house? And who has something that you're not going to just, if I gave gas, your car's convinced going to need some more gas, right? Somebody has a house. Someone who had no generational wealth and no way to build any generational wealth now has an asset that they can groom and grow, and that can be the start of some generational wealth for that next generation. And that's what I mean about service. Service, in order to solve some of the social problems in this country, we got to break some generational curses. And those have to be broken in the spirit and also broken in the flesh. So we got to pray people through these things, and we also have to do some things physically to make things happen. So you measure success person to person. You remember that you're never promised that you're going to solve the issue, but you're going to address the issue. And be balanced. You need to recognize your goal is to address the community and evangelize the co-laborers, the constituents, and the community members. And finally, the old cliche is, do not be so heavenly minded, you're no earthly good, or so earthly minded, you're no heavenly good. So that's the end of our presentation, a few minutes early for questions and comments. And I'm just going to go like that.